The sky over the colony burned red as the alarms wailed through the streets. Nora had never heard a sound like this before. It was not only loud but filled with fear, as if the sirens themselves cried out for help. People ran in every direction, carrying children, dragging bags, clutching each other. The ground shook beneath her feet as distant explosions rolled through the night. She had always believed war was something that happened to others, far from her quiet life. Tonight that illusion broke apart like shattered glass. She pressed her back against a stone wall, trying to breathe, trying to understand. Ships streaked overhead, their engines cutting lines of fire across the sky. They were not human ships. She had seen enough images from the defense networks to know. These belonged to the Taveran, an alien race whispered about in fear. They were said to be merciless, tearing through defenses, claiming worlds as if they were harvesting fields. Nora's world, a quiet agricultural colony, had no soldiers. Only farmers, teachers, workers, and a small garrison that was already overwhelmed. When the first enemy warriors appeared on the streets, her body froze. They were taller than any human, their skin ridged and colored like midnight stone, glowing. Eyes piercing through the smoke. One of them raised a weapon, and for a moment, Nora thought she would die. But the shot went past her, cutting down a drone that had tried to ambush from above. She blinked, unable to believe what she saw. The warrior was not firing at her. He had just saved her life. The alien stepped closer, and she could feel the ground tremble beneath his weight. His armor shimmered with light, runes glowing across its surface. His hand was massive, claws sharp, yet it was not raised to strike her. He looked at her, eyes burning violet, and for the first time she saw something she did not expect. Not cruelty, not hunger for conquest. She saw struggle, as if he fought against chains she could not see. "Human," he said, his voice rough like stone grinding against stone. "Run!" But she did not run. Her heart pounded, her instincts screamed, yet her legs stayed firm. She had seen in his eyes a spark of something human, something she could not name. And that was enough to hold her. Another explosion rocked the street, and rubble rained down. Nora stumbled, and before she could fall, the alien caught her. His grip was strong but careful, as if he feared breaking her. His skin was rough, his touch burning with strange energy. She looked up into his face, and for a heartbeat the war around them seemed to fade away. He set her back on her feet and turned away as if to leave, but her voice stopped him. "Why did you save me?" she asked, her words trembling but clear. Warrior hesitated. For a moment silence hung heavy between them, filled with the sound of fire and screams in the distance. Then he spoke slowly, as if each word weighed heavily on him. "Because not all enemies are meant to die." The answer made no sense to her, yet it struck deep inside. She wanted to ask more, but the moment broke as another group of warriors appeared. These ones were different. Their armor was heavier, their weapons brighter. The warrior who had saved her turned to face them, his stance shifting into one of battle. Nora realized then he was not part of them. He stood between her and his own kind. The clash came fast. Energy blasts lit up the street, striking walls and sending sparks into the night. The warrior fought with terrifying power, moving faster than she thought possible. His strike shook the ground, his roar echoing through the chaos. Nora ducked behind the wreckage, covering her head as the fight raged. She dared to look once, and saw him tearing through his enemies, his body shining with fury. Yet for all his might, he was still one against many. She saw him falter, a strike cutting across his side, armor cracking. He staggered, yet rose again, refusing to fall. Nora felt her own fear twist into something else. She wanted him to live. She did not know why, but the thought of him dying here filled her with pain she could not explain. When the last enemy fell, silence followed, broken only by the crackle of fire. The warrior stood over the bodies, his chest heaving, his wound glowing faintly. Nora rushed to him without thinking, her hands trembling as she touched his arm. "You're hurt," she said. He looked down at her hand, then at her face. There was no answer, only a long moment of silence. She felt heat rise in her chest, not from the flames, but from something deeper. She had looked into the eyes of an alien warrior, and in that moment, she did not see a monster. She saw someone who had chosen to save her when he could have let her die, that it was the beginning of something neither of them understood, but both could feel. The fire still burned long after the battle was over. Smoke climbed into the sky, turning the stars into dim ghosts. Nora walked beside the alien warrior, her steps slow, her mind racing. She had not even asked his name, yet something told her he carried a story that no human had ever heard. He moved with silent strength, his wounded side glowing faintly under the broken armor. She wanted to help him, to offer some kind of comfort, but she did not know how. His body was unlike hers, his wounds were not like human wounds. Still, her heart would not let her leave him alone. They stopped at the edge of the destroyed street, where shadows hid them from patrols. She looked at him carefully. The ridges of his skin glistened with sweat. The glow of his eyes pulsed softly like a heartbeat. "You saved me twice," she whispered. "But why?" The warrior kept his gaze forward, scanning the night as if danger lurked everywhere. His voice came slow, heavy with meaning. "Because I am not like them," he said. "I was born into their war, but I no longer belong to it." Nora frowned. She wanted to understand, but his words were wrapped in mystery. "Then who are you?" she asked. For the first time, his eyes turned to her. There was a deep sadness inside them, a weight of years and choices. "My name has no place among humans," he said, "but if you must call me something, call me Kale." The name rolled across her lips as she repeated it softly. Kale. It felt strange and powerful, yet it suited him. A distant roar shook the ground, pulling them back to reality. Nora realized the city was not safe. If the invaders returned, they would both be killed, one as a traitor, the other as prey. "We have to leave," Kale said. "Where?" she asked. "Where they will not find us. Do you trust me?" The question cut through her fear. Did she trust him? He was alien, a warrior of a race feared across the stars. And yet, he had saved her life more than once. He could have killed her at any moment, but instead he stood as her shield. "Yes," she said at last. "I trust you." They moved through the broken city together, silent shadows slipping between fire and rubble. Nora's mind kept returning to the same thought. She should not feel safe with him, yet she did. Every time he looked back to check on her, every time his hand reached out to steady her, she felt her fear change into something else. When dawn finally touched the sky, Kale led her into the forest that spread beyond the colony. The trees stood tall and dark, their branches weaving a ceiling of green above them. The air smelled of earth instead of smoke. Here at last the sounds of war seemed far away. Kale stopped near a river and lowered himself onto a stone. His wound pulsed brighter, the crack in his armor leaking faint light. Nora knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she tried to see if she could help. "You are bleeding light," she whispered. He gave a low chuckle, though his voice was weak. "Not light, energy. My body is different from yours. But it still hurts." She looked into his eyes and saw the truth of his pain. Without thinking, she tore a strip from her sleeve and pressed it against the wound. He watched her, silent, as if confused by her kindness. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. "Because not all enemies are meant to die," she answered softly, repeating his own words back to him. For the first time since she had met him, his expression softened. The hard lines of his face relaxed, and a faint glow in his eyes grew warmer. They sat in silence for a long time, the river flowing gently beside them. Nora felt her heart beat faster, not from fear but from something she could not name. She was human. He was alien. Yet here, in this fragile moment, none of that mattered. As the sun rose higher, she knew their journey had only begun. The world would not accept what she felt. Perhaps even he would not. But her heart had already chosen. She was the human woman who loved an alien warrior, and nothing would ever be the same again. The forest was calm, but Nora knew it was only a fragile silence. Somewhere beyond the trees, the war still raged. Yet here by the river, she felt a strange peace, as if she had stepped out of her world and into another. Kale sat across from her, his massive form resting heavily against the stone. His wound had dimmed, but she could still see the crack glowing faintly beneath the cloth she had pressed there. She wondered how much pain he carried, yet he spoke nothing of it. His eyes, glowing violet, never seemed to rest. They searched the shadows, the branches, the riverbank, as if danger might leap out at any moment. "You watch everything," she said softly, "like you cannot stop fighting." His head tilted slightly, the ridges along his skull catching the morning light. "Because I cannot. For my kind, there is no rest. We are bred for war, shaped by it. To stop watching is to die." Nora hugged her knees, listening. "But you saved me. That was not war. That was mercy." Kale's gaze lingered on her for a long moment. Then he looked away, his voice lower. "Mercy is weakness among my people. To spare you is a crime. If they find me, they will kill me for it." Her chest tightened at the words. He had not only risked his life in battle, he had risked everything by choosing her over his own. Then why? She asked again, though her voice trembled now. "Why risk it?" Kale was silent. His hand brushed the soil beside him, fingers curling into the earth as if searching for words. At last he spoke. "Because when I saw you, I remembered I was more than a weapon. I remembered I was alive." The words struck her harder than any explosion. She stared at him, her heart pounding. In his voice, in the weight of his tone, she felt the truth. He was not a monster. He was a soul chained by war, longing for freedom. The day stretched on, and they moved deeper into the forest. Nora followed his steps, learning to read his signals. A raised hand meant silence. A tilt of his head meant danger. They moved like shadows, and she began to feel as if she was part of something greater than herself. At night, they built a small fire hidden beneath the thick canopy. The light painted his alien features in golden shadow. She watched him while he sat quietly, repairing a piece of his broken armor with tools she did not recognize. "You don't sleep much, do you?" she asked. His eyes glowed faintly as he looked at her. "Sleep invites death, but tonight I will try." She smiled faintly. "I'll watch for you then." Something passed between them in that moment, unspoken but powerful. Trust. She was human, fragile compared to him. He was alien, forged by battle. Yet here they were, guarding each other in the quiet of the forest. Days turned into a rhythm. She gathered food and water while he hunted and scouted. He taught her how to move silently, how to listen to the sounds of the earth for signs of danger. She taught him how to laugh again, even if it was only at small things, the way the river splashed when she stumbled, the way she mocked his serious tone. One night, under the silver light of the twin moons, he sat beside her longer than usual. She felt the warmth of his presence, the steady strength of him. "Nora," he said at last, speaking her name slowly, as if tasting it. Her heart skipped. "Yes? If we survive this war, your people will not forgive you for walking beside me, and mine will not forgive me for saving you. To stay together is to choose exile." The words weighed heavy in the air, but she did not look away. Instead, she reached out and placed her hand on his. His skin was rough, his claws sharp, yet he did not pull away. "Then exile with you is better than safety without you," she whispered. Kale's eyes glowed brighter, and for the first time, she saw something that looked like hope in them. The war might still burn the world, but here, In the forest, a bond had begun that neither enemy nor fear could erase. The forest grew darker as they traveled deeper. The canopy thickened, shutting out most of the sky. Nora followed Cale closely, her steps guided by his silent gestures. She could see how his movements blended into the trees, how he seemed to belong to wild places where humans would stumble. She realized that he had lived his whole life in survival, and she was only now learning what survival truly meant. For days they found safety in the shadows, but safety never lasted long. One morning, as the mist clung to the branches, Cale suddenly froze. His body tensed, his head turning slightly as if he had heard something Nora could not. She stopped breathing, waiting. Then the sound came to her ears too, the deep hum of ships. The enemy was hunting. Cale's eyes burned brighter, and his voice came low. "They are close. We must move." They ran through the forest, weaving between trees, their feet silent on the damp earth. Nora's heart pounded, not only from fear, but from the thought that she might lose him. Every sound behind them felt like a predator closing in. Every flash of light between the trees was another reminder that the war had not forgotten them. At last, Cale pulled her into a cavern hidden beneath a wall of roots. Inside it was dark and cold, but the noise above soon faded. They crouched together in the narrow space, their bodies pressed close, waiting in silence as the search passed. Nora could feel his strength beside her, the heat of his body, the steady rhythm of his breathing. For a moment, she forgot the war and only felt the closeness of him. When the danger passed, she whispered, "How long can we keep running like this?" Cale looked at her, his glowing eyes piercing the shadows. "Until there is nowhere left to run. Or until we make a stand." Her chest tightened. "A stand? Against them? That's impossible." "Impossible," he said, "is a word used by those who have already given up." She held his gaze, and for the first time she saw not only the warrior but the leader hidden inside him. He was more than a soldier fleeing from his own people. He was a man who carried the strength to defy them. That night, they did not speak much. Yet as she drifted into sleep beside him, Nora thought of his words. Maybe survival was not enough. Maybe they had to fight for something greater. The next day, Cale's wound grew worse. His strength wavered, though he tried to hide it. She noticed how he moved slower, how he leaned against trees when he thought she was not looking. Her heart ached, and she knew she could not stay silent. "Cale," she said, stopping him on the path. "You can't go on like this. You're hurt." He turned to her, his face hard. "If I stop, we both die." "Then let me help you," she pleaded. He shook his head. "You are human. Your strength is not mine." But she stepped closer, her eyes fierce. "Maybe I'm not as strong. Maybe I can't fight the way you do, but I can still carry part of your burden. Don't shut me out." For a moment, Cale stood silent, his face unreadable. Then his shoulders lowered, and his voice softened. "You are unlike any human I have known. And you are unlike any warrior I have known," she said gently. "So let us be different together." They shared a long look, and in that moment something shifted. Their bond was no longer only survival. It was choice. Later, as the sun set and painted the forest in gold, Cale sat by the river with her at his side. He told her stories of his people, of their endless wars, of how mercy was seen as weakness. He spoke of the stars he longed to see, not as battlefields, but as places of peace. Nora listened, her heart heavy yet full. She realized that his pain was greater than his wounds. He had never been allowed to love, never been allowed to choose anything but war. "You don't have to be their weapon anymore," she whispered. He looked at her, his violet eyes glowing softer now, almost tender. "And what am I, if not a weapon?" She reached out, her fingers brushing his hand. "You are Cale, and you are mine." The words hung in the air, powerful and fragile at the same time. Cale did not pull away. His massive hand turned, and his claws carefully closed around her fingers. For the first time, Nora saw him not only as an alien warrior, but as a man who had found something worth living for. And as night fell, they both knew the war outside would soon find them again. But now they would face it together. The forest no longer felt safe. Patrols grew closer each day, and the hum of alien ships often filled the sky. Nora could see the weight pressing heavier on Cale's shoulders. He tried to hide it, but she noticed every wince, every moment he slowed when he thought she wasn't looking. His wound had healed slightly, but the strain of moving, fighting, and hiding had drained his strength. One morning, they found themselves trapped between two scouting groups. Cale pulled her down into the shadows of a ravine, his body shielding hers as enemy soldiers marched above. Nora held her breath, praying they would not be seen. But her heart raced not only with fear of discovery. It raced because of how close he was, how she could feel his warmth, his strength, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against her back. When the patrol passed, Cale whispered, "We cannot keep running forever. They will not stop." She turned to him, eyes fierce. "Then we fight." His brows lowered in surprise. "You are human. Fragile. War is not your way." "Maybe not," she admitted. "But neither is giving up." Cale stared at her for a long moment, then gave a slow nod. "Then we make our stand. But you must understand, if we fail, they will not kill you quickly." Nora's stomach twisted at his warning, but her voice did not falter. "If I must fall, I'd rather fall at your side than live without you." For the first time, his hard expression softened into something almost human. His glowing eyes held hers, and in their silence she felt his answer. They began preparing. Cale taught her how to hold one of his alien blades, how to move with it, how to listen to the earth for the rhythm of footsteps. She was clumsy at first, but determination burned in her heart. He corrected her grip with his large hands, his voice patient, his movements slow so she could follow. She found herself watching him not only as a warrior, but as someone she trusted with everything she was taught at night. By the firelight, they spoke of things beyond war. Nora told him of her childhood, of nights on her father's farm, when she would stare at the stars and wonder what lay beyond them. Cale told her of his people's legend stories of warriors so great that the stars themselves bowed before them. Yet when he spoke, there was sorrow in his tone. "My kind believe strength is the only truth," he said. "But I have learned strength without compassion is hollow." "You taught me that." Nora touched his arm gently. "And you taught me that even in the darkest night, hope can survive." Their closeness grew stronger with each passing day. She felt it in the way he looked at her, in the way his voice softened when he spoke her name. One night, under the silver light of the moons, their bond finally broke through the wall of silence. He reached for her hand, his massive fingers curling carefully around hers. She leaned closer, and their foreheads touched. No words were spoken, yet everything was said in that moment. But peace was not meant to last. At dawn, the sound of war shattered the forest. Explosions thundered, trees split apart, and enemy soldiers poured into the clearing. Cale rose with a roar, his blade burning with energy. Nora stood beside him, clutching the smaller weapon he had given her. Fear burned in her chest, but her feet did not move. She would not run. Not now. The battle was fierce. Cale cut through his enemies with fury, every strike shaking the ground. Nora fought clumsily, but with heart, striking when she could, defending herself as he had taught her. They were two against many, yet they stood as one. But then betrayal struck. From the shadows, a larger figure emerged, an armored commander, eyes burning brighter than the others. Cale froze when he saw him. "Brother," the commander hissed. "So it is true. You fight for the human." Cale's voice thundered. "I fight for my choice, for my freedom." The commander laughed, cruel and sharp. "Then you are already dead." The clash between them shook the earth. Nora could only watch, heart tearing, as Cale fought his own blood. Sparks flew, roars split the sky, and she realized the truth. Kale could not win without breaking himself. And as the battle raged, Nora knew Part 6 would decide everything. Whether love could survive a war that was never meant to end. Asterisk, the clearing. Burned with firelight as Kale clashed with his brother. Nora could barely breathe as she watched them fight. Their blades struck with thunder, each blow echoing through the forest like a storm. Kale fought with fury, his body moving like a force of nature. But his wound slowed him, and the commander pressed harder with each strike. "You betrayed your blood." The commander roared, "I broke my chains." Kale shouted back. Their swords clashed again, sparks flying, light scattering across the trees. Nora gripped her weapon tightly, her heart torn between terror and determination. She wanted to run into the fight, but Kale had told her to stay back. He wanted to protect her, even now, even against his own kin. But then Kale faltered. His brother's blade cut across his chest, throwing him to the ground. Nora cried out, rushing to him before fear could stop her. She dropped beside him, pressing her hands to his wound. "Stay with me," she begged. "You can't leave me now." Kale's glowing eyes dimmed for a moment, his breath ragged. Yet even wounded, he pushed himself up, standing between her and the commander once again. "You will not touch her," he growled. The commander sneered. "You would die for a human? Pathetic." Nora's hands shook, but she stepped forward too, holding the blade Kale had given her. "He is not pathetic," she said, her voice trembling but strong. "He is more than you will ever be, because he knows love. And love is stronger than your hate." The commander laughed coldly and charged. Kale met him in one final clash. Their blades locked, energy sparking, and for a moment it seemed the earth itself held its breath. Kale roared, summoning the last of his strength. With a surge of power, he drove his blade forward, piercing through the commander's chest. The alien warrior fell, his glowing eyes fading as his body crumpled to the ground. Silence followed, broken only by Kale's heavy breaths. But victory had its price. Kale staggered, his knees buckling. Nora rushed to catch him, her arms wrapping around his massive frame as he sank down. His chest glowed faintly, the wound deep and burning. "No," she whispered, tears streaking her face. "Don't leave me, please." Kale's hand rose slowly, his claws brushing her cheek with surprising gentleness. "Nora, you gave me more than life. You gave me a reason to live." Her tears fell onto his skin. "Then live for me," she pleaded. "Please live." For a long moment, she thought she was losing him. But then his body glowed brighter, the light of his wounds shifting. The energy that leaked from him began to weave back into his skin. She could feel it under her hands, the strange healing force of his kind responding not to war, but to her presence, to her voice, to her love. Kale groaned, his breath steadying. His eyes opened again, brighter than before. "Your will pulled me back." Relief and joy filled her chest. She hugged him tightly, unable to stop her tears. He was alive. Against all odds, he had chosen to stay. The forest fell quiet again. The enemy patrols had fled after their commander's fall. For the first time since the war began, Nora felt hope rise like dawn in her heart. Days later, they returned to the colony. The people stared in shock as Nora walked through the ruins with the alien warrior at her side. Some drew back in fear, others whispered in anger, but Nora stood tall. She would not hide what they had become. "He saved me," she told them firmly. "Without him, I would not be here. Without him, many of you would not be alive. He is not our enemy. He is my choice." The silence was heavy, but Kale stood beside her, unflinching. His presence was a mountain, and her courage was its fire. Slowly, the fear in the people's eyes softened into something else. Respect, perhaps even gratitude. And so it began. A human woman and an alien warrior, bound by love, standing together against a galaxy that once believed their bond impossible. They knew challenges would come, that both worlds would try to tear them apart. But they also knew that their love had survived fire, war, and betrayal. As the sun set that evening, Nora looked at Kale and whispered, "We found each other in the war. Maybe now we can build something greater." Kale's glowing eyes softened, and he nodded. "Together, nothing will break us." Hand in hand, human and alien walked forward, not as enemies, not as fugitives, but as a promise of what could be. And so ended the story of the human woman who loved an alien warrior, a love that defied war, defied fear, and became strong enough to change the stars themselves.